And welcome back to an all-new episode of Buckets and Dimes, Nuts and Bolts Sports NBA Podcast. Of course, it's Joe Cardoza here, joined as always by Patrick Hillwig. Pat, what's going on this afternoon, man?
Oh, not too much, man. Just enjoying this beautiful weather. There's a little bit of sarcasm there. It's all nasty outside, but no, really, definitely, we got some great games going on right now. As a matter of fact, you and I were just talking about it. We got the Houston Rockets and the Celtics playing. The Houston's up 84-67. I mean,
Jesus.
There's just so much going on in the NBA right now that, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic week of basketball action for sure. You had 9 games yesterday, another 8 or 7 today.
Yep.
I mean, and out of those bunches of games, you're getting every night 5 to 6 really, really good games. So if you're an NBA fan, it's almost like a March Madness college basketball kind of feel. It's been kind of crazy. But we're definitely happy to be back with you guys. Got a lot to talk about, like Pat said. We're going to kick things off like we do always with our top 10 power rankings. So I'll let you go ahead and start that off this week, Pat. I did it last time, I believe.
Excellent. Yeah, man, we got to go with the Milwaukee Bucks right now. They're on a roll. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. So they're looking good. The Raptors, I've got at number 2. The Warriors at number 3. I think we're pretty much, same vice versa for those 3 each week. The Nuggets I have coming in at number 4. I've got the Trailblazers, man. They've had some big wins against the Celtics, the Sixers, the Nets, the Warriors. They've won they're 6-4 in their last 10. The Rockets I've got coming in at 6. At 7, man, the Utah Jazz are coming back. Donovan Mitchell was balling the other day. So I've got the Jazz at 7. They've won 4 games in a row. The Thunder dropped a little bit. Paul George hasn't played, didn't play the last game, so Russ is out there by himself. But the Thunder have dropped a little bit. They've lost 4 in a row, so I've got them at 8. The Sixers down to 9, and man, I mentioned it last week. I'm gonna stick with it because man, they are balling right now. The Orlando Magic. I said it last week. I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna talk more about them in a little bit. But man, the Orlando Magic. They beat the Pacers. They beat the Warriors the other day. I know you and I were talking about it.
No Durant. But I mean, a W's a
no
W.
Durant. But they still had Curry. They still had everybody else. The Raptors. The Bucks. I mean, we're talking about these are some of the top echelon teams in the Eastern and Western Conference, and the Magic are winning. So, yeah, the Magic I have coming in at number 10.
All right, yeah, somebody must have told Terrence Ross it's a contract year because that guy's been playing out of his mind the last 5 or 6 games for Orlando. And I definitely gave you a lot of crap on social media, on the podcast about having the Orlando Magic anywhere near your top 10, and you proved me right. Proved me wrong, the very next day they beat somebody. I don't know who it was. So the next day they beat a top 10 team in the NBA. So interesting choices there. Yeah, our top 4 is exactly the same. For my top 10 this week, I have the Bucks at the first spot, Toronto at 2, Golden State 3, Nuggets 4. I have the Portland Trailblazers at 5. They were really hungry to prove that last year's fiasco. Everybody remembers that first round exit against the New Orleans Pelicans last year. So does Portland. They have that in their mind. So I have them at 5. I still got the OKC Thunder holding strong at 6. Houston Rockets at 7. Indiana Pacers at 8. The Philadelphia 76ers at 9. And then my number 10 team is the Jazz. 7-3 in their last 10 games, including a big win last night against the Milwaukee Bucks at home. Like you mentioned, Donovan Mitchell's been playing out of his mind, really elevating his level of play. Rudy Gobert posterized and murdered somebody the other night on a dunk that I saw was all over social media. He got dunked on to himself by Giannis, but I mean, who hasn't been dunked on by the Greek Freak? So that's kind of where I'm at right now for my top 10 for the week.
Yeah, I mean, the only team that obviously the Pacers, I'm not really sure about them. I mean, obviously they haven't
really lost the steps. They haven't.
They haven't. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But I'm just not sold on them, man. I can't really go all in on them without Victor Oladipo. They're still standing strong. We've been talking about it for a while, and they're still the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. So
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Everybody was, including myself, was expecting a monumental drop off after they lost Victor Oladipo for the season, and we really haven't seen it. So I'm giving credit where credit's due, man. Indiana's playing a really good brand of basketball. For the Denver Nuggets, still trying to work Isaiah Thomas and get him incorporated back into that rotation. He's definitely a big pickup for them. So it's exciting to see what they're going to do. I keep asking everybody on social media. No one giving me an answer. I'm assuming Michael Porter Jr. is out for the season. I just saw a video last week, windmill dunks, one-step drop dunks. Is the kid going to play or not? Because if they can add him and work him into the rotation, man, Denver's scary. I mean, they have the best home record in the NBA.
If you've watched any of their recent games, man, Paul Millsap, that guy was balling. He was coming in late in the fourth quarter, getting rebounds, tips. I mean, he's one of a big reason why they finally are where they're at now.
Yeah, and of course you can't forget about the Joker, who needs to be in the MVP conversation, in my opinion. I know his game's at the prettiest, but at the end of the day, when the clock goes 0-0, you look at his stats. He's always an assist away or a rebound away from a triple-double, and he always has his hand heavily involved in whatever kind of wins Denver gets as well. Yeah, Orlando, I couldn't put him in my top 10, but if I had like I always say, if I had a 10B, Orlando would be there. I'm really impressed with what they've been doing. Gordon, the whole squad.
Oh, definitely. Like you mentioned it, Ross, Vucevic. I mean, those guys are just going crazy. And who knows what'll happen if Markelle Fultz does somehow or another come back.
Well, that'd be a story right there, man.
I mean, if he can come back and lead that team or just play for the team or whatever, and they can make the playoffs this season, you're right. That's probably one of the biggest stories in basketball this year.
Yeah, nobody's saying Eastern Conference Finals for Orlando, but for that franchise that hasn't been to the playoffs since I think that the second iPhone came out, it'd be a big deal for that franchise to be able to say, "Hey, we're going to the playoffs." Get a little bit more scratch in your pocket. You get those 2 home playoff games. Hopefully, people turn out to go see them. A little bit more money in the franchise's pocket. It'd be nice to see Orlando in the playoffs. It'd be a nice little tune-up for somebody, either the Raptors or the Bucks, whoever ends up being number 1 in the East. We're going to talk about that later on in the show as well. It's become quickly one of the favorite segments of the show. Like I said, this is the same man that said Orlando Magic top 10. They're on the come-up. I laughed. I had jokes. I should share some of the screenshots of some of my funny jokes I had for Pat. And like I said, the second day after I made those jokes, Orlando's beaten top 10 teams. So we're going to switch things up a little bit. Before we talk about our news and notes, let's get right into it. The Hillwood Report.
Yeah, man, there's some great teams out there right now that are really making moves. One of them you mentioned, of course, was the Utah Jazz. They're 6th in the Western Conference right now, so I'm up on them. They beat the Mavs, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Bucks. They've won 4 in a row. So they're definitely playing back up to that caliber of basketball that they were playing last year in the playoffs. The Magic are in 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. They've won 2 games in a row. They beat, again, the Pacers, the Warriors, the Raptors, the Bucks. You just hear that and you're like, wait, the Magic beat those teams? Like, is that real? But it is, man. And the thing about the Magic is they still kind of go back to their old ways, and they did actually end up losing the game to the Knicks in the middle of that. But still, to beat those teams, it's not an easy feat. And then, of course, I've got the Pistons also coming in, another team that I'm high on right now. They're 7th in the Eastern Conference. They've got wins over the Pacers, the Heat, and the Nuggets. They're 8-2 in their last 10. So, hey, the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, the Washington Wizards, they're going to have to, grit their teeth and buckle down because they're going to have to do a lot because the Magic and the Pistons are not trying to give up those last 2 spots.
Yeah, and not to cut you off, but just real fast, we'll talk about Detroit. If you have somebody who has not watched Blake Griffin play basketball in a couple of years, you might want to. The way that guy has expanded his game from being just a dunker and the guy who jumped over a Kia to adding a 3-point shot, a mid-range jumper, having some really good ball handling skills. Not the greatest team in Detroit. I will keep on beating the drum. They need to get rid of Reggie Jackson and get a better point guard. But Blake Griffin's having a really good season this year.
No, I'm definitely agree with you 100%. And, he's obviously the reason why they are right there. We're in that spot where they're at in the 7th spot. Man, there's a couple of teams. Obviously, they're good teams, but teams that just recently I look at them and I'm like going, what in the world's going on? The Oklahoma City Thunder, man. They're 3rd in the Western Conference, but they've lost to the Spurs, the Sixers, the Nuggets, the Kings, the Pelicans. The Pelicans without Anthony Davis, who only plays 20 minutes and doesn't play a single minute in the 4th quarter. The Pelicans has been coming around a little bit in the past few days, but, it's just what's going on there, man. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost 4 straight games. Yeah, like I said, Paul George hasn't played in the game there, and they've played a couple of tough matchups as well. Like I said, when you look at them playing the Nuggets, the Sixers, those are not easy teams to beat. But, the Thunder, I'm down on them right now. The Washington Wizards, obviously we're a Wizards fan. We live in the D.C. area, but, man, they're 4 games behind the 8th spot in the playoffs. They're 3-7 in their last 10. Their loss are the Celtics, who we, of course, were the ones to lose to them when they were on a 4-game losing streak. So I was like, this will be the game that the Celtics win. And sure enough, The Pacers, the Hornets, the Raptors, the Pistons. Those are all great teams, but man, we just got to figure out a way to, to put a couple of winning streaks together. Even if we win 4 or 5, 6 games or something like that out of 10. I mean, 3 and 7 out of the last 10 is it's not going to get it done. You're not going to catch those other teams that way.
Not a chance.
Another team, man. You and I were talking about it before we started the podcast. The Celtics, man. What in the heck is going on with the Celtics? You look at a team; they're 4 and 6 in their last 10. They're 1 and 4 since the All-Star break. They have losses to the Blazers, the Raptors, the Bulls, the Bucks, and the Clippers. I mean, the Celtics. I mean, we talked about it. Are they the team to beat in the Eastern Conference? No, obviously they're not anymore. Obviously, you got the Raptors and you got the Bucks, but everybody's still high on the Celtics just because they got Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Horford. So I mean, they definitely got. If you look at it on paper, they got one of the best starting fives, in the league right now. But they're just not playing well together right now. So those are my teams that I'm kind of up on and down on. Man, if you want to talk about some guys though that have been heating it up lately, I got to start with my guy Bradley Beal. What he's doing right now in Washington, what he did in the month of February, I mean, it's just unreal. In February, he averaged 31 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. The team's been losing, but in a loss against the Celtics, he had 29 points and 11 rebounds, a block, and 2 steals. They did beat the Nets in the middle of all that. He had 31 points in that game. In the loss versus the Pacers, he had 35 points. And then, of course, he had 46 points in the loss at the Hornets. I mean, but I believe it was Batum and Kemba Walker actually, went off as well. So it just seems like every time we have a guy with a good game, they have 2 guys with a really good game as well. I mean, Siakam, I think, put up 46 on us a couple weeks ago, or 40-something. So, Bradley Beal. Trae Young, man. Trae Young. Shout out to Trae Young,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
Right? I mean, that guy has just been balling. Last 10 games, he's averaging 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists. In a game against the Bulls, I believe that was 4 overtimes between him and Zach LaVine, but he had 49 points, 8 rebounds, and 16 assists, along with a block and a steal. In a win versus the T-Wolves, 36 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists. They did lose at the Rockets, but he put up 36 points, 1 rebound, and 8 assists again. And then, of course, in the win versus the Suns, 23 points, 2 rebounds, and 8 assists and a steal. So, I mean, that guy is just balling. I saw a stat the other day, and I got to throw it in here. The last rookie to have a 40 and 10, 40 points, 10 assists game was LeBron James in 2004. That's now Trae Young was the last rookie to do that. So, I mean, that just shows you what he's really doing there in Atlanta, and he's definitely making moves. Another guy, he's a career 13-point-per-game average. He used to be here with the Washington Wizards. Bojan Bogdanovic, man. The last 10 games, he's been keeping the Pacers there. Obviously, I don't believe that they're still a top 10 team. They're a good team, but they're not in that top 10 echelon, in my opinion. But he's averaging 23 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's in the loss against the Magic, he had 25 points. He was 2 for 7 from the three-point line. I mean, he's one of the hottest three-point shooters in the league right now. He had 37 points in a win versus the Mavs. The Wolves, and in the loss against the Mavs, he had 22 points. He leads the team in scoring since Victor Oladipo left. He's keeping that team where they're at. So, of course, one more guy, I got to mention him. You mentioned him early, Donovan Mitchell. Woo!
Spider-Man.
Woo! I mean, he's coming up with big-time shots and big-time moments. If you watch the game, I believe it was against the Nuggets, he had a great fourth quarter where he made a bunch of clutch shots in that fourth quarter. But in the last 10 games, he's 28 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Of course, we talked about it against the Bucks. They had a win against the Bucks the other night, 43 points, 3 rebounds and 6 assists, with 1 block and 2 steals. So he's filling the stats on that. Win at the Nuggets, he had 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Win versus the Clippers, 32 points. The Mavs,